Ayaan was just 10 when his world began to fall apart. His father, once the only source of laughter in their tiny home, walked out without a word one evening. No explanation, no goodbye. His mother stood silently at the door for hours, staring into the empty road, her tears falling without sound. That night, Ayaan realized something about pain. It rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes it just settles in quietly and stays. From that day, the boy who once asked endless questions stopped speaking so much. He learned to read people's faces instead of their words. He watched his mother work 2 shifts at the factory, her hands covered in calluses, her body trembling from exhaustion. Yet she never complained. Her silence taught Ayaan that real strength didn't always roar. It often whispered. At school, Ayaan sat at the back, invisible to the teachers, overlooked by the students. He wasn't the loudest, the smartest, or the most talented, but he noticed everything. When a teacher was kind, he remembered it. When someone dropped their lunch and cried, he offered half of his own. While others chased attention, he focused on understanding. The world didn't clap for him, but he clapped for himself in secret every time he didn't give up. He would often sit alone on the rooftop at night, watching the stars. In those moments, he made silent promises to grow, to rise, to become someone no one could ignore. Not for revenge, but for purpose. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove himself right. He didn't yet know how or when, but he had started the journey. Quietly, silently, powerfully. Years passed, and Ayaan remained invisible to the world. At school, no one waited for him. No one called his name during games, and no one noticed when he sat alone during lunch. But none of that broke him. It built him. Every insult, every failure, every ignored hand raised in class became a brick in the wall of his character. While the other kids mocked him for not having fancy shoes, Ayaan walked 10 kilometers every day to school with torn sandals, whispering equations under his breath. While others laughed at his silence, he turned it into focus. He began to read late at night, using the light of a candle when electricity failed. No teacher stayed after class to help him, so he became his own teacher, solving problems until his eyes stung from lack of sleep. He never once told his mother how hard it was. Instead, he smiled when she served him the same roti and dal every night, because he knew she was giving him everything she had. In silence, he started to win battles, small ones at first. A quiz topped. A math problem no one else could solve. A book finished in a day. No claps, no recognition. But Ayaan kept score in his heart. Each step forward was a quiet rebellion against the life he had been handed. While the world looked for stars that burned bright, Ayaan was becoming a sun behind the clouds. Unseen, but powerful. Not loud, just unstoppable. When the scholarship letter came, no one in the neighborhood even knew. He didn't throw a party. He didn't shout in excitement. He simply folded the letter, kissed his mother's forehead, and left for the city. University life was a battlefield of its own. Ayaan arrived with one small suitcase, a heart full of dreams, and barely any money. The city moved fast, and no one had time for a quiet boy from a forgotten town. But Ayaan had something more valuable than speed. He had endurance. While others gave up when the pressure rose, he remembered his mother's tired hands and refused to stop. He worked part-time jobs to afford books, studied until his body begged for rest, and still showed up every day, ready to learn. Professors noticed his discipline. Employers noticed his honesty. Strangers noticed his kindness. Still, he didn't post his achievements online. He didn't speak about his journey. He kept rising quietly because his fight had never been about showing off. It was about becoming someone worthy of the pain he had endured. By the time he graduated, Ayaan had already been offered jobs by top companies. Not because he talked the most, but because he worked the hardest and let his results speak for him. Years later, Ayaan returned to his hometown, not with expensive cars or bodyguards, but with a plan. He bought land with his own savings and built a school where children like him wouldn't be forgotten. The same neighbors who had once pitied him now stood in awe, clapping, crying, calling him a miracle. News channels came. Reporters asked questions. Everyone wanted to know how he did it. But Ayaan simply smiled. He didn't tell them about the nights without food, the years without friends, the days he felt like giving up but didn't. He didn't need to. His silence had already spoken louder than any words ever could. He sat alone on that same rooftop that once held his childhood dreams, watching the stars again, not with sadness this time, but with peace. Because he knew he didn't become a hero by being seen. He became one by never giving up, even when no one was watching. If you'd like, I can now combine all 4 parts into one beautifully flowing story. Ready for video narration, PDF, or a book chapter style format? Just say the word.